The old gym smelled like rubber mats and cleaning spray. 12-year-old twins Kai and Kira stood at the entrance, their brand new white uniforms still creasing from the package. Their mom had dropped them off 10 minutes early, rushing back to her evening shift at the hospital. She worked double shifts most days just to keep food on the table and pay rent for their small apartment. "You sure about this?" Kai whispered to his sister, adjusting his stiff new belt for the third time. The material felt strange around his waist, nothing like the comfortable clothes they usually trained in. Kira nodded, but her hands were shaking. Slightly. "Grandpa Joe said we needed to learn proper forms. Remember what he always says, knowing how to fight isn't enough if you don't understand discipline." Through the glass doors, they could see other students warming up. Most looked confident, moving through kicks and punches like they'd done it 1,000 times. Some wore belts with multiple stripes. Others had solid black belts that seemed to demand respect just by existing. The automatic doors whooshed open, and suddenly they were inside. The sound hit them first, the sharp crack of hands hitting pads, feet sliding across mats, and the occasional shout from students practicing their techniques. LED lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the training space. "Welcome to Chen's Traditional Karate Academy," said a voice behind them. They turned to see an elderly Asian man with kind eyes and a black belt so worn the edges were fraying. "I'm Master Chen. You must be the Johnson twins." Kai and Kira bowed awkwardly, the way their grandfather had taught them to show respect to elders and teachers. Master Chen smiled at their effort even though their form was rough around the edges. "Your mother called last week. She mentioned you're both interested in learning traditional karate." His voice was gentle but carried authority. "Have either of you studied martial arts before?" The twins exchanged a quick look. This was the moment they'd discussed during the bus ride over. Their grandfather had made them promise not to mention their years of training with him. "Start fresh," he'd said. "Learn their way first, then you'll understand the difference between fighting and martial arts." "No, sir," Kira answered. "We're complete beginners." "Excellent. Clean slates are often the best students." Master Chen gestured toward the main training floor. "Tonight we'll focus on basic stances and respect. In traditional karate, how you carry yourself matters as much as how you move." As they walked toward the group of students, Kai noticed several older teenagers clustered near the equipment rack. 3 of them wore black belts with multiple stripes, clearly advanced students who'd been training for years. One was a tall boy with broad shoulders who looked like he played football at school. Next to him stood a girl with perfect posture and expensive-looking gear, everything matching and spotless. The third was shorter but stocky, with scars on his knuckles that suggested he'd done plenty of contact training. The tall one, who the others called Devon, caught sight of the twins and nudged his friends. They whispered something among themselves, looking over with expressions that weren't exactly welcoming. "Line up by rank," Master Chen called out. "White belts in back, black belts in front." Kai and Kira found themselves at the very back of the group, behind even the other beginners. Most of the other white belts were younger kids, maybe 8 or 9 years old. The twins felt out of place, too old to be starting from scratch but clearly not experienced enough to belong anywhere else. The class began with basic warm-ups, simple jumping jacks, stretching, and jogging in place. For the twins, this was almost laughably easy. They'd been doing military-style conditioning with their grandfather since they were 5 years old. Push-ups, sit-ups, and running had been part of their routine for years. But they held back, moving at the same pace as the other beginners, careful not to stand out. "Now we'll practice basic stances," Master Chen announced. "Horse stance first. Feet shoulder-width apart, knees bent, back straight. This builds leg strength and teaches balance." The younger kids wobbled and shook, struggling to hold the position for even 30 seconds. Kai and Kira could have held it for 10 minutes without breaking a sweat. Their grandfather had them do horse stance while reading homework assignments. But they let themselves shake a little, pretending to struggle like everyone else. Devon and his friends seemed bored by the basic instruction. They practiced their own advanced techniques on the side, throwing flashy kicks and combinations that looked impressive but served no real purpose. The girl, Lisa, kept checking her reflection in the mirrored wall, making sure her hair stayed perfectly in place even during training. "Partner up for basic blocking drills," Master Chen instructed. White belts with white belts, colored belts with their own ranks. The twins naturally paired together, which was exactly what they'd hoped for. They'd been sparring partners their entire lives, reading each other's movements like a shared language. But they had to dial it way back, moving slowly through the prescribed techniques. Raise your arm like this to block a punch, Master Chen demonstrated. The motion should be smooth, not jerky. Power comes from proper form, not muscle. As they practiced, Kai noticed the black belts weren't really following along with the class. They seemed to exist in their own bubble, above the basic instruction. Devon was showing off for some of the intermediate students, executing spinning kicks that served no practical purpose but looked good. Your form isn't bad for beginners, came a voice from behind them. They turned to see Lisa approaching with her two friends. Up close, she looked even more intimidating. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, her belt tied with mathematical precision. Thanks, Kira replied carefully. Where did you train before coming here? Devon asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. You move like you've done this before. We haven't, Kai answered. This is our first martial arts class ever. The shorter boy, Tommy, crossed his arms. Interesting. Most people are completely lost their first day. You two seem comfortable. There was something in his voice that made both twins tense up. Not quite an accusation, but definitely suspicion. They'd been careful to move like beginners, but maybe their natural athleticism was showing through anyway. We watch a lot of movies, Kira said with a nervous laugh. Maybe that helps? Lisa smirked. Movies, right? Well, just so you know, this isn't Hollywood. Real martial arts takes years to learn properly. Some people think they can just walk in and be good at it right away. We're not expecting to be good, Kai said. We just want to learn. Good, Devon replied. Because respect is earned here. You can't fake your way to a black belt. The three advanced students walked away, leaving the twins feeling unsettled. There had been something off about the whole interaction, like they were being tested or evaluated for reasons they didn't understand. The rest of the class passed without incident. They learned basic punches, practiced more stances, and ended with meditation. Master Chen dismissed everyone with a bow and reminders about practice at home. As the twins gathered their water bottles and prepared to leave, they overheard Devon talking to some of the other advanced students near the exit. Did you see those two? Something's not right about them. What do you mean? Asked another student. Nobody moves that naturally on their first day. They're hiding something. Kai and Kira exchanged glances but kept walking toward the door where their mom would be waiting. They'd managed to get through their first class without revealing their secret, but it was clear that staying under the radar was going to be harder than they'd expected. Outside in the parking lot, their mom's old sedan was waiting with the engine, running. She rolled down the window as they approached. How was it? She asked, exhaustion clear in her voice despite her smile. Good, Kira answered. The teacher seems nice. We learned basic techniques. I'm proud of you both for trying something new, their mom said as they climbed into the back seat. Your grandfather will want to hear all about it when we visit this weekend. As they drove home through the city streets, Kai stared out the window at the passing lights. He was thinking about the way the black belts had looked at them, the questions they'd asked, the feeling that they were already on someone's radar. Hey, Kira, he said quietly. Yeah? I think we might have a problem. 3 weeks had passed since Kai and Kira first walked into Chen's traditional karate academy. They'd settled into a routine, homework after school, quick dinner with mom before her night shift, then off to karate class 3 times a week. Their white belts were starting to look less crisp, showing the beginnings of wear that came with regular training. But something had shifted in the atmosphere of the dojo. It started small. Devon would accidentally bump into Kai while walking, past during water breaks. Lisa would make comments just loud enough for the twins to hear about how some people don't really belong in traditional martial arts. Tommy had a habit of staring at them during meditation time, making it impossible to actually relax and focus. The twins tried to ignore it. Their grandfather had taught them that bullies feed on reactions, and the best defense was often no response at all. But it was getting harder to pretend everything was normal. Line up for partner drills, Master Chen announced during their Thursday evening class. I want everyone working on controlled sparring today. Light contact only. This is about technique, not power. Kai found himself paired with a green belt named Alex, a quiet kid about his own age who'd always been friendly. They bowed to each other and began the drill. One person attacks with a basic punch, the other blocks and counters. Simple stuff, but it helped build timing and distance control. Nice block, Alex said after Kai deflected his punch and responded with a controlled counterstrike. You're getting really good for someone who just started. Thanks, Kai replied, trying not to let his natural reflexes take over. Just practicing what Master Chen teaches us. From across the mat, he could see Kira working with one of the younger students. She was being extra careful to move slowly, letting her partner succeed with techniques that she could have countered in her sleep. Their grandfather's voice echoed in his mind. True strength is knowing when not to use your power. Switch partners, Master Chen called out. Everyone rotate clockwise. Kai's stomach dropped as he realized his new partner was Devin. The older boy approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, cracking his knuckles as he walked over. Well, Devin said as they bowed to each other. Finally get to see what you're really made of. It's just practice, Kai replied carefully. Light contact, like Master Chen said. Sure, light contact. Devin settled into his fighting stance. Hope you're ready for this. The drill began the same way. Devin threw a basic punch and Kai blocked it. But instead of the gentle tap they'd been practicing all semester, Devin's strike came in fast and hard. Kai's block worked, but the impact sent a sharp pain up his forearm. Oops, Devin said with mock concern. Guess I don't know my own strength. They continued the drill, but each of Devin's attacks came with increasing force. A punch to the midsection that left Kai gasping, an elbow strike that grazed his ribs harder than necessary. A leg sweep that was supposed to be controlled but nearly sent him sprawling across the mat. Kai could feel his training kicking in, his grandfather's lessons about reading an opponent, finding weaknesses, responding to aggression with calculated force. It would be so easy to slip one of Devin's punches and return the favor with interest. His body knew exactly how to move, exactly where to strike to end this nonsense immediately. But he held back. Instead, he absorbed the punishment and tried to focus on the techniques Master Chen had taught them. Block, counter, lightly reset. Block, counter, lightly reset. Even as Devin's mistakes grew more obvious and painful. Time to switch, Master Chen announced, but Devin wasn't done. One more round, he said loudly enough for the instructor to hear. I want to make sure I understand the technique properly. Master Chen nodded approvingly. Good attitude, Devin. Repetition builds muscle memory. This time Devin came in with what was supposed to be a basic front kick, but his foot drove hard into Kai's stomach, doubling him over and leaving him struggling to breathe. Several other students turned to look as Kai dropped to one knee. Sorry about that, Devin announced loudly. New guy lost his balance. Maybe he needs more conditioning before he's ready for partner work. Master Chen hurried over, concern written on his face. Are you all right, Kai? Do you need to sit out for a few minutes? I'm fine, Kai managed to say, still catching his breath. Just I got the wind knocked out of me. These things happen, Devin added helpfully. Maybe you should stick to solo forms for a while. Build up your fundamentals. As Master Chen helped Kai to his feet, the older man missed the satisfied smirk on Devin's face, but Kira saw it from across the room, and her hands clenched into fists before she forced herself to relax them. The class continued, but the message had been sent. When they paired up for the next drill, both Tommy and Lisa made sure to work near the twins. Their techniques were technically correct but delivered with just enough force to cross the line from training into intimidation. Lisa accidentally stepped on Kira's foot during a footwork exercise, her heel grinding down with unnecessary pressure. Tommy kept invading personal space during grappling practice, using his weight advantage to make everything harder than it needed to be. You know, Lisa said during a water break, approaching Kira near the fountain. I've been thinking about what you two are really doing here. Drinking water? Kira replied, trying to keep her voice light. Cute. No, I mean at this dojo. See, my parents have been paying for my training here for 5 years. 5 years of dedication, respect, and hard work. And then people like you just walk in off the street and expect to be treated the same way. We're not expecting anything, Kira said. We're just here to learn. Are you? Tommy appeared on her other side, effectively trapping her between them. Because from where I stand, it looks like you're here to make some kind of point. Like you think you deserve to be here, just because you showed up. Devin joined the group, completing the circle around Kira. Kai noticed from across the room and started walking over, but Lisa held up a hand. Don't worry, we're just having a friendly conversation, she called out, her voice sweet and innocent. Chuck, thing is, Devin continued quietly, this dojo has a certain culture, standards. Not everyone fits in here, and that's okay. There are plenty of other places that might be more suitable for people like you. People like us? Kira asked, her voice steady despite the tension. You know what I mean, Tommy said with a shrug. Different backgrounds, different expectations. Maybe somewhere less traditional would be a better fit. Like a community center, Lisa added. Or one of those strip mall schools that gives out belts like participation trophies. Master Chen's voice cut through the tension. Water breaks over. Everyone, let's work on kata forms. The 3 black belts dispersed immediately, their expressions shifting back to respectful students the moment their instructor was watching. But the damage was done. The twins had received the message loud and clear. They weren't welcome here, and things were going to get worse before they got better. As they moved through the traditional forms, Kai and Kira found themselves thinking about their grandfather's lessons. Not just the fighting techniques, but the deeper wisdom he'd shared over the years. About patience. About choosing your battles. About the difference between backing down and biding your time. Sometimes, he'd told them once while they practiced in his backyard, the strongest thing you can do is let someone underestimate you. After class, as they gathered their gear and prepared to leave, Devin made one final approach. This time he didn't bother with the pretense of friendliness. Hope you enjoyed tonight, he said, his voice low enough that Master Chen couldn't hear from across the room. But maybe think about whether this is really the right place for you. Accidents happen during training. Injuries. Sometimes people realize they're not cut out for traditional martial arts. Is that a threat? Kai asked quietly. It's friendly advice, Devin replied with a cold smile. This dojo has a reputation to maintain. We can't have people getting hurt because they're in over their heads. As the twins walked out to meet their mom in the parking lot, they could feel the eyes of the 3 black belts watching them go. The war had officially begun, but it was still a cold war, conducted through looks, implications, and carefully disguised aggression. How was class tonight? Their mom asked as they climbed into the car. Fine, Kira answered automatically. We learned some new forms. But as they drove home through the dark streets, both twins were thinking the same thing. They needed to call their grandfather this weekend. Not to ask for permission to quit, neither of them was ready to give up that easily. But to ask for advice on how to handle a situation that was clearly escalating beyond simple training accidents. The real test was just beginning. The harassment got worse over the next 2 weeks. What had started as accidents during sparring practice turned into a systematic campaign to make the twins' lives miserable at the dojo. Devin and his crew had gotten creative with their bullying, always staying just under the radar of Master Chen's watchful eye. It began with small things. The twins would arrive to find their gear moved to different lockers, forcing them to search through the entire changing room. Their water bottles would mysteriously disappear during class, leaving them dehydrated during intense training sessions. Once, Kira discovered her uniform had been soaked with water from the janitor's sink, making it impossible to wear to class. Probably a leak in the ceiling, Lisa had said with fake sympathy when Kira mentioned it. These old buildings have all sorts of problems. But the worst part wasn't the pranks. It was the isolation. The 3 black belts had somehow convinced most of the other students to keep their distance from the twins. Not through threats or direct intimidation, but through subtle social pressure that was almost impossible to prove or fight against. "I heard they lied about their experience level," someone whispered during warm-ups. "My friend saw them starting fights at their old school," another student murmured. "Devin said they don't respect traditional martial arts," came from across the mat. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter when the rumors came from respected senior students. Soon even the friendly green belts who had welcomed the twins in their first weeks began avoiding them during partner exercises. Kai and Kira found themselves paired together more and more often. Not by choice, but because nobody else wanted to work with them. They ate lunch alone at school, thinking about their upcoming karate classes with growing dread instead of excitement. "Maybe we should just quit," Kira said one evening as they walked home from another difficult session. Her shoulder was sore from where Tommy had accidentally thrown her too hard during a takedown drill. "There are other martial arts schools in the city. Grandpa Joe specifically wanted us to learn traditional forms," Kai replied, though his heart wasn't really in the argument. He said Master Chen was one of the best instructors in the state. Grandpa Joe doesn't have to deal with Devin and his gang every Tuesday and Thursday. They'd called their grandfather the previous weekend, trying to explain the situation without sounding like they were whining or making excuses. But it was hard to describe the constant low-level harassment, the way every class felt like walking through a minefield of potential humiliation. "Bullies exist everywhere," their grandfather had said over the phone, his voice warm but firm. "Running away just teaches them that their tactics work. Sometimes you have to stand your ground." "But we can't fight back without breaking our cover," Kira had protested. "Who said anything about fighting? There are many ways to show strength." "Granddaughter. Not all of them involve throwing punches." Easy for him to say, Kai thought as he nursed a bruised rib from another training accident. He wasn't the one getting used as a punching bag 3 times a week. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in late October. The twins arrived at the dojo to find Master Chen in a serious discussion with another instructor near his office. Some kind of administrative issue that was keeping him distracted and away from the main training floor. "Perfect," Devin said under his breath as he noticed the lack of supervision. "Tonight we settle this once and for all." The class began normally enough. Warm-ups, basic forms, partner exercises. But as the evening progressed, the 3 black belts grew bolder in their harassment. Devin's strikes during sparring came harder and faster. Lisa's takedowns were more aggressive, designed to slam rather than control. Tommy started using joint locks that walked the line between training and actual pain. "Fight back," Devin whispered during a grappling exercise, his forearm pressed against Kai's throat with just enough pressure to make breathing difficult. "Come on, show us what you're really made of." Kai forced himself to tap out instead of using the counter techniques that would have freed him in seconds. His grandfather's voice echoed in his mind about patience and control, but it was getting harder to listen to that wisdom when his body was screaming for him to defend himself properly. The real disaster happened during the final exercise of the night. Master Chen had stepped into his office to take an important phone call, leaving the senior students to run a basic kata competition. Students would perform their forms individually, while others watched and offered constructive criticism. Kira was in the middle of her routine when Lisa approached from behind, supposedly to get a better viewing angle. What happened next looked like a complete accident to anyone watching casually. Lisa stepped forward at the exact wrong moment, directly into the path of Kira's back kick. The collision sent Lisa sprawling across the mat, her expensive uniform tearing at the shoulder. "She attacked me!" Lisa screamed, loud enough to bring Master Chen running from his office. "She deliberately kicked me during her kata." "That's not what happened," Kira protested, but several of the other students, clearly coached by Devin and Tommy, began nodding in agreement with Lisa's version of events. "I saw it too," Tommy said, his voice dripping with false concern. "She added an extra technique that wasn't part of the form, caught Lisa completely off guard." "The form doesn't include a back kick in that sequence," Devin added, shaking his head sadly. "Someone must have taught her wrong, or she's mixing up different styles." Master Chen looked confused and concerned as he helped Lisa to her feet. The older man had missed the setup, the carefully orchestrated collision that made Kira look like the aggressor. All he saw was one of his most dedicated students on the ground with a torn uniform, claiming she'd been attacked during what should have been a peaceful demonstration. "Is this true, Kira?" he asked gently. "Did you add techniques that weren't part of the assigned kata?" "No, sir," Kira replied, her voice steady despite the anger burning in her chest. "I was performing the form exactly as you taught us." "Lisa walked into my technique." "That's a lie," Lisa said, tears forming in her eyes. "She's been hostile toward us advanced students since day one, always acting like she knows better than everyone else." "That's not true." Kai stepped forward to defend his sister, but the damage was already done. Half the class was staring at the twins like they were dangerous troublemakers, while the other half looked away uncomfortably. Master Chen raised his hand for silence. "Everyone sit down. We need to discuss what happened here calmly and respectfully." But before he could continue, Devin played his final card. Reaching into his gym bag, he pulled out a small notebook, old worn leather with pages that looked like they'd been through years of use. "I found this in the changing room," he said, holding up the book. "Someone must have dropped it." Kai's heart stopped. It was their grandfather's training journal, the one their mother had given them to study his techniques and philosophy, the one they'd been careful to keep hidden in their gym bags, never bringing it out during class. "Looks like someone's been keeping secrets," Devin continued, flipping through pages covered with detailed fighting techniques, combat strategies, and notes about pressure points and joint manipulation. "These aren't beginner techniques. This is advanced combat training." Master Chen took the journal with growing concern, his eyes widening as he scanned the pages. The technical drawings were precise and detailed, showing fighting methods that went far beyond traditional karate. Military hand-to-hand combat, street fighting adaptations, techniques designed not for sport or self-discipline, but for real-world survival. "Where did this come from?" he asked quietly. The twins looked at each other, their carefully maintained cover blown wide open. They could lie, claim they'd never seen the journal before, but their grandfather had taught them that honor mattered more than convenience and that truth was always better than deception in the long run. "It belongs to us," Kira said finally. "It was our grandfather's journal from his military service." "Your grandfather taught you these techniques?" Master Chen asked, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Yes, sir," Kai admitted. "We've been training with him since we were little kids." The silence in the dojo was deafening. Master Chen continued, flipping through the journal, finding page after page of combat techniques that had nothing to do with traditional martial arts. The other students stared at the twins with mixtures of shock, fear, and betrayal. "So you lied to us," Devin said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You've been pretending to be beginners while you actually know how to fight. That's why you've been so comfortable in class. That's why your techniques looked familiar." "We never lied," Kira protested. "We said we were new to traditional karate, and we are. What our grandfather taught us is completely different." "Different how?" Lisa demanded, still holding her torn uniform dramatically. "Different like how you accidentally attacked me during kata practice?" Master Chen closed the journal and looked at the twins with sad, tired eyes. The disappointment on his face was worse than any physical punishment Devin and his friends could have inflicted. "I think," he said slowly, "we need to have a serious conversation about honesty, respect, and whether this dojo is the right place for you both." As the words hung in the air, the phone call with their grandfather that Friday evening changed everything. Kai and Kira sat in their small living room, the old landline speaker crackling as their mom worked late at the hospital again. They'd spent the entire day thinking about Master Chen's disappointed face, wondering if they'd be kicked out of the dojo permanently. "Tell me exactly what happened," Grandpa Joe said, his voice serious but calm. They explained everything, the journal being found, the setup with Lisa, Master Chen's reaction, and how Devin and his friends had orchestrated the whole thing. Their grandfather listened without interrupting, the silence on the other end growing heavier with each detail. "I see," he said finally. "And what did Master Chen say after he looked through my journal?" "He said we needed to have a serious conversation about whether the dojo was right for us," Kira replied. "He looked really disappointed, Grandpa, like We'd betrayed his trust. And how do you feel about that? Kai thought for a moment. Angry, I guess. We tried to do everything right. We followed your advice about being patient and respectful, but they kept pushing and pushing until something had to give. Sometimes, their grandfather said slowly, patience isn't enough. Sometimes people mistake kindness for weakness, and they keep testing you until you have no choice but to show them who you really are. But you always taught us to avoid fighting unless absolutely necessary, Kira protested. I did, and that lesson still stands. But there's a difference between starting a fight and finishing one that someone else started. Those three have been attacking you for weeks, not with fists, but with manipulation and intimidation. That's still violence, just a different kind. The twins exchanged glances. Their grandfather's tone had shifted from the gentle wisdom they were used to hearing into something harder, more direct. What are you saying, Grandpa? Kai asked. I'm saying it's time to stop hiding who you are, not to show off or prove a point, but to stand up for yourselves with dignity. Master Chen deserves to see your real abilities, and those bullies need to learn that their actions have consequences. How do we do that without making things worse? There's a monthly tournament at the dojo, isn't there? Open sparring, all ranks welcome? Yeah, Kira said. Next Saturday, but we're probably going to be suspended or kicked out before then. No, you're not. I'm going to call Master Chen tomorrow morning. It's time he knew the whole truth about your training and about why I asked you to keep it quiet initially. Saturday morning arrived gray and cold. The twins walked into the dojo expecting to find their lockers cleaned out and a formal letter of dismissal waiting for them. Instead, they found Master Chen standing near the entrance with an expression they couldn't quite read. Kai, Kira, he said as they approached. I had an interesting conversation with your grandfather yesterday. Their hearts sank. If Grandpa Joe had called, it probably meant their karate career was officially over. They'd be known as the kids who got kicked out for lying about their experience. He explained some things that I wish I had understood from the beginning, Master Chen continued. About why you came here, what you hoped to learn, and why you felt you needed to hide your background. We're sorry, Kira began, but Master Chen held up his hand. Your grandfather told me about his military service, about the combat training. He gave you and about his concerns that you needed to learn discipline and traditional forms to complement your fighting skills. He also told me about his specific instructions for you to start fresh here, to learn our way without bringing your previous training into it. Kai and Kira stood silent, unsure where this was leading. What he didn't tell me, Master Chen said, with a slight smile, was exactly how advanced your training really is. He suggested I might want to see for myself during today's tournament. You're not kicking us out? Kira asked in surprise. On the contrary, I'm very interested to see what you've been hiding all these weeks. Your grandfather seems to think it might be educational for everyone involved. The dojo was more crowded than usual for the monthly tournament. Word had spread about the incident with the journal, and many students had come to see what would happen with the fake beginners who had been exposed. Devin, Lisa, and Tommy sat together near the front, looking confident and pleased with themselves. Master Chen called for attention as the sparring matches began. Today's tournament is open to all ranks as always. However, I want to remind everyone that this is about skill, technique, and respect, not about settling personal disputes. The early matches proceeded normally. Green belts against green belts, brown belts working through their brackets. The crowd cheered appropriately, with Master Chen providing commentary on technique and form. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Our next match, Master Chen announced, will be Devin Martinez, second-degree black belt, against Kai Johnson, white belt. The whispers around the room were immediate and shocked. White belts didn't fight black belts in tournament settings. It was considered unsafe, unfair, and potentially dangerous for the beginner. Devin stood up with a confident grin, stretching his shoulders dramatically. Hope you're ready for this, newbie. I'll try to go easy on you. Kai walked to the center of the mat, his heart pounding, but his mind clear. All those weeks of absorbing punishment, of holding back his real abilities, of letting Devon and his friends think they were weak and helpless. It was all leading to this moment. Bow to each other, Master Chen instructed. This will be a 3-minute match, light contact only. I will stop the fight if I see anything unsafe. They bowed, and Devon immediately began circling like a predator who'd cornered easy prey. He threw a few lazy kicks and punches, testing Kai's defenses with techniques that looked impressive, but had no real power behind them. Kai blocked and evaded, just as he had during all those training sessions. But something was different this time. He wasn't holding back his reflexes or pretending to be slower than he really was. His movements were fluid, economical, precise. Come on, Devon taunted, throwing a harder punch. Fight back. Show everyone. What's in that journal of yours? That's when it happened. Devon committed to a big, flashy spinning kick, the kind of technique that looked great in movies, but left you completely off balance if it missed. Kai simply wasn't there when the kick arrived. He'd moved just enough to avoid it completely, and as Devon spun through empty air, Kai struck. It wasn't a tournament technique or a traditional karate move. It was pure combat efficiency, a precise strike to a pressure point that dropped Devon to the mat instantly, gasping and unable to stand. The entire dojo fell silent. Devon, the confident second-degree black belt who had been terrorizing the twins for weeks, was on his hands and knees struggling to breathe from a single touch. What just happened? Someone whispered from the crowd. Master Chen knelt beside Devon, checking his condition while keeping his eyes on Kai. Pressure point strike to the solar plexus, he said quietly. Very advanced technique. Very precise control. As Devon slowly recovered and was helped to his feet, the reality of what they'd just witnessed sank in around the room. The fake beginner had just defeated one of the dojo's best students with a technique that most of them had never even seen before. Next match, Master Chen announced, his voice carrying a new note of respect. Lisa Rodriguez, first-degree black belt against Kira Johnson, white belt. Lisa's confidence had evaporated completely. She'd watched her friend and leader get dismantled by someone she'd been bullying for weeks. But she was committed now, trapped by her own arrogance and unable to back down in front of the entire school. The second fight was even more decisive than the first. Kira moved like water, flowing around Lisa's attacks and responding with techniques that were beautiful in their simplicity. A perfectly timed sweep that put Lisa on the ground. A joint lock that had her tapping out within seconds. Combat skills disguised as an elegant dance. When it was over, both of the dojo's most feared bullies sat on the sidelines, their reputations shattered and their confidence destroyed. The twins stood in the center of the mat, no longer pretending to be something they weren't. Tommy, Master Chen called out, would you like to complete the set? The third member of the group looked around the room at faces that had gone from mocking to respectful to slightly afraid. He shook his head quickly. No, sir, I think I've seen enough. Master Chen addressed the entire dojo. Let this be a lesson to all of us about assumptions, about respect, and about the difference between true strength and empty posturing. These two have been training in combat techniques since childhood, but they came here to learn discipline and traditional forms. They showed respect for our methods by setting aside their own knowledge to start fresh. He looked directly at Devon and Lisa, who were still trying to process their humbling defeats. Others chose to mistake humility for weakness and kindness for an invitation to abuse. Today's demonstration should make it clear that there are consequences for that kind of behavior. As the tournament continued around them, Kai and Kira realized that everything had changed. Their secret was out, but instead of shame, they felt relief. No more pretending, no more hiding their abilities, no more absorbing punishment from people who mistook their restraint for helplessness. The real test wasn't the fighting, it was what came next. The week following the tournament felt like stepping into a completely different world. When Kai and Kira walked into the dojo on Tuesday evening, the atmosphere had changed so dramatically they barely recognized the place. Students who had avoided them for weeks now watched them with obvious curiosity and respect. Hey, called out Alex, the green belt who had been one of the few students to remain friendly throughout their ordeal. That was incredible what you did on Saturday. I've never seen anything like those techniques. More students gathered around, asking questions about their training, their grandfather's military background, and the combat techniques they demonstrated. It was overwhelming after weeks of isolation and whispered rumors. "Where did you learn that pressure point strike?" asked Jamie, a brown belt who'd been training at the dojo for 3 years. "I've read about those techniques but never seen anyone actually use them." "Our grandfather taught us," Kira replied, still getting used to being able to speak openly about their background. "He learned hand-to-hand combat during his military service and adapted it for civilian self-defense." Master Chen approached the group with his usual calm presence. "If you're interested in learning more about combat applications, I've invited the twins' grandfather to visit our dojo next week. He's agreed to conduct a special seminar on practical self-defense techniques." The announcement sent a buzz of excitement through the students. Even some of the higher-ranking belts looked intrigued at the prospect of learning from a real military instructor. But not everyone was celebrating the twins' revelation. Devin sat alone near the back of the dojo, his usual crew of followers conspicuously absent. Tommy had quit the school entirely after Saturday's demonstration, too embarrassed to face the other students. Lisa still attended classes, but she kept to herself and avoided eye contact with almost everyone. "How are you handling all this attention?" Master Chen asked the twins privately after class. "I imagine it's quite an adjustment from being outcasts to being the center of interest." "It's weird," Kai admitted. "For weeks we just wanted people to leave us alone and let us train. Now everyone wants to be our friend." "That's often how it works," Master Chen said with a wise smile. "People are drawn to strength, but they need to see it demonstrated before they believe it exists. Your grandfather was right to have you start fresh here. You learned humility and patience, qualities that make real martial artists, not just fighters." "What about Devin and Lisa?" Kira asked. "They look pretty miserable." Master Chen's expression grew more serious. "That's something we need to discuss. Devin asked to speak with me after class today. He wants to apologize to both of you, but he's struggling with his pride. Lisa is dealing with her own embarrassment and some difficult questions from her parents about her behavior." The twins exchanged glances. Their grandfather had taught them that victory without mercy was just another form of bullying. "Maybe we could talk to them," Kai suggested. "Clear the air properly." "I was hoping you'd say that." True martial artists know when to fight and when to forgive. Both are important skills. The conversation with Devin happened the next day before regular class started. Master Chen arranged for them to meet in his office, creating a neutral space for what could be a difficult discussion. Devin looked different, smaller somehow, without his usual confidence and swagger. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he kept fidgeting with his black belt like he wasn't sure he deserved to wear it anymore. "I wanted to apologize," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. What we did was wrong. There's no excuse for it." "Why did you do it?" Kira asked, not accusingly, but with genuine curiosity. "We never did anything to you." Devin was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. "I guess I felt threatened. My parents have been pushing me since I was 8 years old to be the best at everything. When you two showed up and seemed so natural at techniques that took me years to learn, I thought you were going to make me look bad. But we were trying to blend in," Kai pointed out. "We weren't showing off or competing with you." "I know that now. But back then I was so worried about maintaining my reputation that I convinced myself you were the problem. It was easier than admitting I might not be as good as everyone thought I was." Master Chen nodded approvingly. "It takes courage to admit when we're wrong, especially about our motivations. What matters now is what you do with this understanding." "I want to learn," Devin said, looking up at the twins for the first time. "Not just fighting techniques, but the kind of control and discipline you showed. Even when I was being horrible, to you, you never lost your temper or tried to hurt me more than necessary. Our grandfather taught us that real strength means protecting people, not dominating them," Kira explained. "Even when they don't deserve protection." The reconciliation with Lisa took longer and was more complicated. She came from a wealthy family that saw her martial arts training as another achievement, to add to an impressive resume. The public nature of her defeat had caused problems at home that went beyond simple embarrassment. "My parents are furious," she admitted during their eventual conversation. "They've been bragging to their friends about my black belt for months. Now they're questioning whether the dojo is maintaining proper standards." "What do you think?" Kai asked. Lisa sighed heavily. "I think I've been so focused on looking good that I forgot why I started martial arts in the first place. I used to love the challenge of learning new techniques and pushing myself to improve. Somewhere along the way, it became more about status than skill." "That can happen to anyone, Rice," Master Chen interjected. "The important thing is recognizing when we've lost our way and choosing to find it again." The following week brought Grandpa Joe's promised visit to the dojo. The 73-year-old man didn't look particularly intimidating when he walked through the doors in his simple workout clothes and worn sneakers. But when he began demonstrating techniques, every student in the room understood immediately why his grandchildren were so skilled. "Military combat training isn't about fancy moves or looking impressive," he explained as he showed a room full of black belts how to escape from various holds and attacks. "It's about efficiency, practicality, and staying alive. Every technique has to work under pressure, against someone who really wants to hurt you." He paired different students together, teaching them adaptations of traditional karate techniques that made them more effective in real-world situations. Even Master Chen participated, clearly learning new approaches to familiar movements. "The most important thing my grandchildren learned wasn't how to fight," Grandpa Joe told the group during a break. "It was when to fight and, more importantly, when not to fight. They could have responded to your harassment with violence weeks ago. Instead, they chose patience and respect." Devin raised his hand hesitantly. "How do you develop that kind of self-control?" "Practice," the old man replied simply. "Every day, you make choices about how to respond to frustration, anger, and fear. The more you choose patience over violence, respect over revenge, the stronger those muscles become." As the seminar continued, something beautiful began to happen. The artificial divisions between ranks started to break down. Black belts were learning from white belts who had different perspectives on techniques. Students who had never spoken to each other were sharing insights and helping each other improve. Devin and Tommy, who had returned to class after missing a week, began training together with the twins, forming an unlikely friendship based on mutual respect rather than intimidation. Lisa threw herself into learning with renewed passion, focusing on personal improvement rather than public recognition. "This is what a dojo should be," Master Chen told Kai and Kira as they watched the transformed dynamic among the students. "A place where everyone helps everyone else become better. You two didn't just defend yourselves, you helped heal this entire community." 3 months later, the twins received their first colored belts in traditional karate. The ceremony was attended by all their classmates, including Devin, Lisa, and Tommy, who applauded enthusiastically as Master Chen tied the new orange belts around their waists. "These belts represent not just technical skill," Master Chen announced to the assembled students, "but character, patience, and the wisdom to use strength responsibly. Kai and Kira have earned these ranks not just through their abilities, but through their examples of how true martial artists should behave." After the ceremony, as the twins walked out to meet their mother in the parking lot, Devin caught up with them. "Thank you," he said simply, "for not giving up on this place, and for not giving up on us. Thank you for giving us the chance to prove that strength and kindness aren't opposites," Kira replied. As they drove home that evening, their mother asked about their new belts and the ceremony. Grandpa Joe was right, Kai reflected. Sometimes, the most important battles aren't about winning or losing. They're about staying true to who you are and helping others find their way back to who they want to be. The twins had started their journey at Chen's traditional karate academy as outsiders hiding their true abilities. They were ending it as leaders who had transformed not just their own experience, but the entire culture of the school.